What if the mental health crisis we're seeing right now isn't just personal, but a reflection of the world we're living in? Let me ask you something. Have you noticed how many people are struggling right now? Anxiety, burnout, emotional overwhelm, feeling lost, feeling disconnected, and it's everywhere, not just in one group of people, but across all ages. And the conversation we're often given is, something's wrong with you. But what if that's not the full picture? What if what people are experiencing right now isn't just individual? What if it's a response to the environment we've been living in? Because when you really step back and look at things, the pace of life, the pressure, the disconnection, it's a lot for any human nervous system to carry, and yet we're trying to function as if it's normal. Keep listening. Welcome to the Inner Magic Academy podcast. If you're loving our videos, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks, and enjoy this episode. Welcome back to the Inner Magic Academy podcast. I'm your host, Peter Magic. So if you're someone who feels things deeply and who's struggled with emotional overwhelm and who often questions why life feels so intense at times, then this episode is for you, because in the last episode, we spoke about why we normalize the state of the world. So how we adapt to pressure, stress, and disconnection, and often without questioning it. So if you think about about a baseline, the human collective consciousness with where it is at a baseline right here, right now, there are so many people that only see themselves based on their conditioned identity, their conditioned self. So if you think of a baby that's born into this world, they learn to see love from a conditional lens, right? They're born into a conditional environment, and there are things being mirrored to them that starts to pull their soul's essence out of alignment with, their true authentic energy, from coming from a place of, not coming from a place of fear and insecurity, coming from a place of feeling whole and feeling secure within yourself. So if you think about that conditional environment where you learn about love from a conditional lens, there are younger versions of yourself that start to be pulled out of alignment. And these are fragmented aspects of us that we all have that are deeper underneath the surface, that we lack a consciousness of, an awareness of, and it plays out through, not only traumas, it plays out through, a lot of fear and insecurity, and a lot of us are masking and holding ourselves back. So these are those deeper aspects of ourselves that we've lost touch with. And so we're not able to project our energy from more of a conscious lens, from more of a place that's in alignment with the mind of our soul, right? So these are those fragmented aspects of ourselves. But what we're going to do today, what we're going to talk about is, we're going to start looking at what does this do to us internally, because what's happening externally doesn't just stay external. It impacts the nervous system, the emotional body, and the way we experience ourselves. So this is starting to unpack all of that. And I want to talk about where we are right here, right now. There is so much change happening. People are starting to see things on a more physical level playing out in the world. There's a lot more stress. There's a lot more pressure. There's a lot more that we're having to not only be aware of, we're having to cope, we're having to process, to move through. And it's a lot for any human being and a lot for any brain to have to process through all of those things. So not only are people starting to wake up to things on a more deeper level, they're having that awareness in itself creates a lot more stress, creates a lot more, it's a lot more for you to process it, to move through, because you have that awareness. And so what that's doing is it's impacting the nervous system, it's impacting your emotional body and how you experience things, day in, day out, how you experience the world, all the different environments you're in, the people you're around. You're starting to become more aware of not only patterns and things within yourself, because if you're someone who's a deep thinker and a deep feeler, and you're not only sensitive, you're also maybe fall under the spectrum, a bit of autism, a bit of ADHD. There are aspects of you that do fall under that category, because you're a soul who's born into this world with that deeper sense of connection, deeper sense of how you experience the world is more in depth, right? So this is all part of that. And so that does make life more challenging. But where we are right here, right now, there's a lot more conflict. There's a lot more distracting us. There's a lot more pressure and stress in the world, and for someone who experiences the world in this way, what is that going to do? There's going to be a lot more struggles with mental health, right? And what I want to share with you in this episode is this is why we're seeing a lot more people struggling with mental health right here, right now on the planet. And a lot of these stresses, it's not only things that we're experiencing right here, right now, that we're picking up from the environments we're in, people who are around. We're also carrying these stresses from generationally. We're already carrying the load. This energetic blueprint is what we already carry in ourselves, right? And these stresses, it's coming up beneath the surface as we're moving along, because through the solar activity right here, right now, there's a lot more that's being brought up beneath the surface. Think of more light coming into your body. There's more that you're integrating. It's bringing more of the shadow aspects of yourself beneath the surface. So you have more awareness. You're feeling more connected, which means you're deeply impacted by things around you more than things were in the past, because we are going through this shift. We are, the human collective consciousness is starting to rise. And so we're having more of a deeper awareness. And for us who are those deep thinkers and feelers, we are the ones who are experiencing the most struggles with mental health right now. And we're picking so much up around us. And it's not necessarily things that, we're having to process and move through within ourselves, our own traumas, our own things that we've embodied early on, through our conditional environment, our inner child. So it's not only those aspects of ourselves, but we're also picking so much more up around us because other people, really struggle to self-regulate. And there's so many people out there that, they don't process and move through their own stuff. And so what do you think happens? You're in those environments, you're picking all of those things up through your nervous system, and it's affecting how you're feeling, how you're thinking. You're picking all of these things up. It's affecting your nervous system, and it makes you experience a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear, and a lot of insecurity. And it's not necessarily yours, but it's affecting you. And when you don't have a deeper sense of connection within your own being, within your own, what's coming up beneath the surface for you to process and to move through, then it's a lot harder to distinguish, is this actually mine, or am I picking this up through that environment, through others? And so all of this is affecting our mental health. It's affecting how we're feeling, and everything in this world is about how we're feeling, right? And that's why we're here as human beings. We are deeply, connected with each other, right? Whether we're aware of it or not, there's, at a subconscious level, we're all connected to people, to places, to things. There's an, at a subconscious level, we have this attachment, we have this connection to things within our environment in particular. Brings up a lot. So I'm going to start to go more deeper into this now. So I think the best place to start right here, right now, is just to acknowledge that people right here, right now, they're feeling as if something is wrong with them, right? They feel like as if there's something that they need to fix within themselves, because they're feeling overwhelmed, because they're feeling anxious, because they're feeling like they can't keep up. And there's been so much that's been asked of us right here, right now in this world. It feels like everything is speeding up and we just cannot keep up. And we feel like we're failing, right? A lot of us feel like we're failing in life, and we're constantly focused on where we are right here, right now. But what if it's not just you? What if part of what you're experiencing is a natural response to the environment you're in? Because the human nervous system was never designed for constant stimulation, constant pressure, constant comparison, constant information. And yet this is what we're exposed to every single day. So of course people are feeling overwhelmed, but that doesn't make you broken. It makes you human. So if you're someone right here, right now, that's feeling overwhelmed by everything that's happening around you and is struggling to keep up in the way things are in the world, it means you are a human being. It means you are deeply in touch with your humanity. because you are not only deep thinker and feeler, you're more aware that everything is connected, right? So you have a deeper sense of connection to your own soul. And you're actually right here, right now, trying to anchor in a lot more light, a lot more frequency. You're trying to bring yourself into alignment. But of course, what's going to happen through that, it's going to bring up a lot more of that shadow aspect of yourself, right? So at a subconscious level, you're becoming more aware of things that are deeper beneath the surface, not only within your own being, but you're picking all of this up around your environment. And think of the world we're in right now. People are chasing their own tails and they're struggling to keep their head above water. People really struggle with self-regulation, to self-regulate on the planet. And of course, those ones who are not self-regulating, they're projecting. And there's so much that you're picking up through your nervous system that's affecting you. And why do you think a lot of people that are autistic and highly sensitive are struggling the most right now on the planet? A lot of people that are autistic really struggle with their mental health, and they struggle with a lot of suicidal thoughts and things because they're picking so much up. They're actually mirroring. I'm telling you right here, right now, they're actually mirroring to others in the environment what's out of alignment. And your nervous system can only take so much up, can only soak up so much. And once that cup starts to overflow, people are going to let this out. And people are doing the best they are based on where they are, based on what they're able to process and move through, because this world's asking us to do so much. And it's almost like as if our mental and our emotional state is just being completely neglected systematically in this world, right? We're so disconnected in this world, and we've come to the point now where we have to start to put this as a priority, our mental and our emotional state. If we don't focus on this as a priority, we're not going to make it as human beings on the planet. And that's why you're seeing so much of this conflict and separation, and people just being completely overwhelmed and not able to, struggling to function in the world, because it's too much for any human nervous system to have to process for all of the things that are happening right here, right now. All the things that are coming up beneath the surface is a lot for anyone. And you can't blame people for trying to cope and survive in whichever way they're coping and surviving right here, right now. And for myself, even doing this, right, and still trying to work 5 days a week right here, right now, is a lot for me as an autistic person. But I know the importance of speaking the truth and sharing my voice and keeping, from a mental point of view, it's important to express yourself. It's important to share how you're feeling. It's important to be honest and authentic as possible. So this is extremely important for my own mental health. But I know there are so many people out there listening to this that feel seen and feel heard for how they're experiencing things right here, right now. And so that's why it's important that I, through this episode, that I actually share that true perspective on where things are, because there's so much that is playing deeper beneath the surface that so many people in this world have lost touch with, or lost connection with, and not aware of within themselves, and not picking up through others and through their environment. And it's just where things are right now. And so this is why it's important for us deep thinkers and deep feelers to really start to focus on our own self, our own lives, and start to learn to regulate our nervous system, learn to focus on where we are, rather than, focusing on everything that's happening around us, because we have to hold space for ourselves, right? That's the only way that we can process and move through what keeps coming up. And that's the only way that we're going to work through our mental and our emotional states. And that's the only way we're going to be able to, recharge our batteries and take back our energy because it's being siphoned in all these different directions. And so many of us are really struggling to keep up right now. And that's why I wanted to speak about this, to say, there's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. There's nothing that you need to fix within yourself. You're just deeply connected to everything. You're deeply affected by that, because we're all carrying these stresses generationally, and we're also experiencing so much in the world right now, and it's overwhelming for anyone, but for someone who is autistic and highly sensitive, and like I said, he's a deep thinker and a deep feeler, and is more aware of things that are far more deeper. You're struggling the most right now, and you're doing the best you can. I just want to acknowledge that you are doing the best you can right here, right now, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with you. So a lot of people right now, they're living in survival mode without even realizing it. They're always on edge. They're always thinking, always trying to keep up. And so when you live in that state long enough, it becomes your baseline. It starts to feel normal, but survival mode isn't where clarity lives, right? It's not where connection lives. It's not where you feel like yourself. It's where you react. And when people are constantly in that state, their capacity to process emotions becomes limited, which is why things build up and eventually they overflow. So think of, like I mentioned, the baseline on where the human collective consciousness is right here, right now. Those of us that are have been planted here like seeds to experience the world more in depth, right? We bring more soul essence. We bring a very high frequency onto the planet. And right now we're trying to anchor that in. This is as honest I'm going to be right now. It's like we're trying to anchor this light in hell. Because right now it feels like we're in hell. It feels like, and I'm going to tell you and be honest here that I feel the most at peace when I go to bed at night, and where I can just let go and just have some rest and know that, okay, now my soul's going to recharge me. It's going to, put more life force energy into me, and I'm going to be able to get up the next day and keep going. Because at the end of most days, I feel completely exhausted and depleted. And that's kind of what I want to share here is those of us who are here as anchor points on the planet, anchoring more light. We are like we're antennas that are receiving a lot of light. We're anchoring a lot of light on the planet, and we're trying to anchor this through a lot of the darkness, through a lot of the shadow that keeps now coming up beneath the surface. So the more light we start to anchor in, the more darkness, which means, in a physical sense, it's a lot more chaos, a lot more conflict, a lot more separation. There's a lot more people reacting. There's a lot more people really just not being themselves, right? They're not making choices and decisions from a conscious place. It's from a reactive place. You see a lot of workplaces now just reacting, and they're operating from a survival point of view. This is just, they're trying to survive, trying to keep their head above water. And that's the only way they know how. And so this is no longer working on the planet. People that are trying to operate from the same place, it's no longer working. So we're trying to find a new way to be, but it's not working because systematically, like I mentioned, our mental and our emotional states have been completely neglected. In any work environment, yes, people are trying to change things slowly, but it's not happening quick enough that we're able to feel more safe and secure, and we're able to have more space to process and to move through everything that we're constantly picking up around us, right? So because people struggle to self-regulate, people are not as deeply aware and connected as you are. Someone who's listening to this podcast and is still here, you are someone who's more tuned in to everything. You're more affected. You're most likely autistic, having a different operating system, an ADHD brain. You notice patterns, you notice things, not only within yourself, you notice things within others, and you're a lot more affected environmentally around you. You're picking so much more stresses up. It's not just your own that you're processing, moving through, you're picking it up from others. And it's affecting your ability to function each and every day. So I just wanted to acknowledge that that's what happens is once things build up, and in work environments particularly, we spend so much time in these environments, and we're trying to do anything to cope and to survive. We're not really encouraged to express ourselves, and a lot of people struggle to communicate, in work environments. A lot of people are just so focused on just productivity, and like I mentioned, their mental and their emotional states being completely neglected. And so people struggle to self-regulate. They struggle then to communicate, to be in the flow. And so we feel that around us. And that means that people are masking them, holding themselves back. They don't want to create discomfort. They don't want to create any conflict. But what that's doing is it's underneath the surface. There's so much more stress. There's so much more pressure. There's so much more that, at some point, our nervous system will overflow and people will be more reactive. And that's what is happening, because that is the only way that most of us have known how to cope. We're not being taught how to self-regulate, because systematically that's completely neglected. And so, of course, that is what people are used to, and they think it's normal. They think it's just the way it is, and you just got to toughen up and you just got to deal with it. No, this has to change in the world. And so the ones that are more deeply connected and who are struggling the most with their mental health right now, they need to start to focus on themselves and do whatever it takes to take back their energy, do whatever it takes to forget about anything that's happening on the outside. You have absolutely no control over what happens on the outside, but what you do have control of is your own peace within yourself, your own regulation within yourself, right? It's about learning to hold space for that. It's about learning to process and to move through that. And however much time you need, however much space you need, that's got to be your priority. It's got to be your priority, because if you don't take care of that, then, from a mental point of view, you're going to continue to struggle. And so it's just about taking that time out for yourself, and doing whatever it takes to fill up your own cup, doing whatever it takes, whatever it is that works for you. Whatever you need to do to self-soothe, whatever you need to do to self-regulate, learning to find new ways to cope and to move through that, rather than ways that, are not healthy. Because a lot of us that are autistic and deeply sensitive, there's so many patterns and cycles that we have that are unhealthy. And we learn this through our conditional environment. We learn this based on what was mirrored to us. And so if that's the only way we know how, that's what our younger selves now, our inner child, will continue to do. And so us as, an aware adult, aware of this within ourselves, we have to learn to find new ways to process and to move through that. And as we do this, we start to shift things slowly from the inside out. If you're liking this episode, you'll love our free masterclass, Unmask Your Relationships. Unmask Your Relationships is for anyone who craves deeper, more fulfilling relationships, especially if you're a highly sensitive person or people pleaser. In this training, you'll discover what's holding you back and learn how to actually break free from people pleasing and validation seeking. Understand why you attract certain people and situations into your life, and start to identify and transform the parts of you that hide behind your ego's mask. And this training is absolutely free. So watch it now by going to innermagicacademy.com/unmask. Okay, so I'm going to take your focus here for a moment. So one of the biggest things that I've noticed is how disconnected people feel from themselves. Not because they don't care, but because they haven't had the space to connect. We're constantly consuming, scrolling, distracting, avoiding, but rarely slowing down enough to ask ourselves, what am I actually feeling right now? And when you lose connection with yourself, everything starts to feel confusing, but you're looking externally for answers instead of internally for guidance. So this is what most people on the planet are used to. is seeking for ways to cope externally, finding ways, anything to resort to outside of you, to either distract, to take your focus away from what's happening, whatever it is. People are only finding external resources and things to help them process and to move through things. But your energy, your soul's essence, is being projected from the inside out, right? And because everything is connected at a subconscious level, there's so much that's playing out deeper beneath the surface. And that means that there's so much more playing out within your own emotional body and your nervous system. And because we're so used to, we've been programmed to be so much in our heads and to keep our focus and our energy in that space, that a lot of us don't know how to drift beyond being in our brains and being in our thinking and being in our heads. We don't know how to drift off, because unless we start to slow down our nervous system, unless we start to focus on our breath, unless we start to bring our awareness to our breath and learn to expand our heart and start to drift off into our emotional body, into the sensations that we're experiencing, we're not going to build not only emotional resilience, we're not going to, learn to get out of our comfort zone and sit in that discomfort and learn to move energy through that. Then we're not going to be able to drift beyond our conditioned selves, right? Beyond our identity, the person that we think we are, through all of the programming, all of the stresses, all of the reactive patterns. All of those things will continue to play out as long as we keep our energy in that space. So this is about us learning to build on that relationship and a connection with our own soul. And this is why people have faith. This is why people speak to God within their own minds. This is why people go beyond themselves to find a deeper sense of connection. And it starts with building on that relationship with yourself and your own soul, because your soul knows and can see things that are playing out underneath the surface at a subconscious level. So the guidance and intuitive guidance that your soul's trying to, show you in through signs and synchronicities and all these things that are happening, it's but the noise on the outside is so loud and it's being intensified on the outside that it's being drained out. Everything's being drained out, and people have lost touch with their intuitive abilities and feeling more connected and seeing things deeper beneath the surface, and their energy remains based on what's playing out at a surface level. And so that's why so many people are only focused and aware of what is playing out in front of them, just from a physical sense. They're not going beyond themselves to try and create a more safety and security from the inside. Because unless you shift your energy and learn to do that from the inside, what you project on the outside won't shift, it won't change. It will continue to play out in the same way, from a reactive place, from a place of fear and insecurity. And so this is about us learning to get in touch with a deeper part of ourselves, bring more of our soul essence into our being, and learn to focus on our own breath, learn to bring ourselves back into the present moment, because we cannot control anything that happens on the outside. But what we can do is we can learn to control our own internal states and how we respond to that. And that is taking back our energy. That is taking back our authentic power and learning how to regulate through that. And it takes time. It's a process. It's not something you do overnight. It's something that you've got to continue to work on. And it's not something that you are going to master in this lifetime. This is something that we continue to learn and move through as souls. As we continue to move through lifetime to lifetime, we go through this process of learning how to do that. So what happens on the outside, it then starts to mirror things from a more deeper level, because if we can be more authentic and project our energy for a place that's more in alignment, then what's on the outside starts to naturally gravitate towards the authenticity and tone of what you project out. And so this is all part of the process, learning to self-regulate, learning to create more stability, learning to create more peace from the inside, from deeper beneath the surface. So there's anchor points go far beyond anything on what's happening on the outside, and it's not going to pull you away from, because when you have those anchor points that go far deeper, nothing on the outside can pull you away from that, because you start to solidify your identity beyond yourself. And that is you embodying more soul, and that is you anchoring in more light on the planet, and that is part of what we're all moving through right here, right now. Okay, so this is going to solidify a lot of things I've been discussing, right? So there are people who feel more intensely. So there are people who are here on the planet right here, right now, that are the deep feelers. They're neurodivergent individuals. They're autistic. They have an ADHD brain. They have a different operating system. And so how they experience this world is more in depth, right? So people who don't just process life logically, but emotionally and energetically as well. And what they're experiencing, it isn't weakness, it's sensitivity. But we're in a world that doesn't understand sensitivity. It often gets labeled as something to fix instead of something to understand. And when you don't understand what you're feeling, it becomes overwhelming. So when you're not in touch with deeper aspects of yourself, when there's a lot of fear and insecurity, and you're unable to understand those deeper parts of yourself, then your brain continues to loop. It continues to spiral because you don't understand that. You're not aware of it. You don't have an awareness and understand, and can then hold space for those deeper parts of yourself, because there is a lot of fear and a lot of insecurity there. And so you, through this process, when you get in touch with those deeper parts of yourself, you learn to hold space for them to process and to move through what continues to arise beneath the surface. Right? So this is why there are certain people on the planet that are more in touch with, are more sensitive. And there are people that are even speaking about this. There's a new awareness around autism and ADHD. People are becoming more aware of this and speaking up about it. And it's part of this human evolution we're going on, where we're learning to expand more. And as we expand, as we continue to rise, we're getting more solidified in how we're able to communicate that to others, right? Because we're getting in touch with deeper parts of ourselves. We can then express that, we've learned to embody and understand that on a multiple level. So at a brain level, we can then articulate that a lot better. So this is what I've been learning how to do over the past 5-6 years. Like if I went back 6 years ago, I wouldn't be able to explain things in depth as I do right now, because it's a process. It's taken me time for my soul to, help me integrate all of this so I can then articulate it on a more deeper level. So, this is all part of a change. And being deeply sensitive, it's not a weakness. It just means you're more in touch with this world. You're more in touch with things that are far more deeper. And there's nothing wrong with you for experiencing the world in that way. There's nothing that you need to change or fix about yourself. It's just about knowing yourself on that more deeper level and getting in touch with that, so you can better understand. And as you better understand, you know what those deeper aspects of you need, and so you can learn to meet them in that space. And then what you're doing is you're learning to self-regulate. And so what you start to do is then you project your energy from a place that's more in alignment, that's not constantly in a state of fear and insecurity, and then you're not constantly reacting, and in that, allowing your survival brain to keep spiraling out of control. It's all part of this process. We're all learning. I'm not saying that I know everything right here, right now. I'm continuing to understand things more in depth as I go along. And so this podcast, for example, allows me the space to be able to start to articulate that. And I'm putting these pieces of my puzzle together more as I continue to do that, because I'm hearing myself speak, and I'm understanding that more in depth. It's like I let my channel I'll let it be open so my soul can communicate more through me. My inner child can start expressing themselves more through me. And so I'm learning to embody that through this process as well. Okay, so I just want to keep piecing all of this together for you, because I let myself go on these little tangents, but then I'm doing my best to ground all of this information, because it's important that I let myself go on the flow. But I also, I have a bit of a structure to help me keep myself on track. So when emotions aren't processed, they don't disappear. They accumulate, and eventually they come to the surface as anxiety, as burnout, as emotional shutdown, as feeling completely overwhelmed. And instead of asking, what is this trying to show me? We're often taught to suppress it, to push through it, to ignore it, to distract from it, but that only delays the process. So there are ways that we've learned to cope and survive in this world, and we've learned to be so much in our heads. And of course, with all of the things that we are experiencing in this world right now, so many people are struggling with mental health. They're constantly burnt out. They're struggling to keep up. And it's because we haven't learned how to self-regulate. Most people on the planet do not know how to self-regulate. It's not their fault. This is what they're used to. It's all they're used to. It's all they've known. And so this is the journey and the process that we're going on as things keep rising beneath the surface, and it will continue through this solar activity. This is part of human evolution. This is part of where we're going. We're anchoring in more light on the planet. And so that it means that the collective shadow, the baseline, will keep rising. So people need to keep facing that. We can't continue to cope and survive in those old ways. It will no longer work. I'm telling you, it will no longer work, and people will struggle more and more with their mental health. And so this is why it's so important that we face this. We learn to process through this within our own system. And, it's not going to take overnight. And I hope through this podcast, I hope that there's something that you're taking on board, and you're starting to connect the dots within your own experience, because that's what I'm here to do, is bring perspective, to bring awareness, to help you take back your authentic power, to take back your peace, to know that you're not separate from everything and everyone, and your own soul. And God knows exactly what this planet needs. And we are going through this change because we are, this is the process. Things will continue to rise beneath the surface. It will continue to look like the world is falling apart. It will continue to look like there's more chaos, and it will continue to look like it's the end of times. But that's not really what's happening. It just means that we're learning to find new ways to actually be on the planet, which means we're learning to actually to live more in alignment, to live more with how we experience the world. So us deep thinkers and feelers, us who are deeply are more connected, we are paving the path for others and showing that there is another way of living a life, and that's living more in alignment, that is learning to go within yourself, that's learning to to process and move through and to regulate your own stuff, instead of continuing to project through trauma, continue to react instead of learn to respond, instead of meet what rises beneath the surface. And the more people that do this, the more stability that we're creating on the planet, the more peace we're creating on the planet. Like, this is all part of the process. So I'm here to shift that perspective, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to best, articulate and ground everything that's going on. And like I said, I'm a human being and I don't have all of the answers, but as I continue to go down this path, I get more in touch with things on a more deeper level, and then I'm able to articulate that in a more of a grounded way. So this is the process that I'm going through. So I just want to bring your awareness back to this right here, right now. So what if the mental health crisis isn't just something to fix? What if it's something to understand, a signal that something about the way we're living is out of alignment, because your mind and your body are always communicating with you. And when you begin to listen instead of resist, everything starts to shift. So This is just solidifying everything that I'm sharing here about the current mental health crisis that we're experiencing in the world, right? So you got to look at this as not that there's something wrong with you or there's something to fix, not only within yourself, but within others. It's about to better understand. It's about to better learn how to self-regulate, to hold space for, because when you're around someone who you feel more safe and secure around, it's because they have the ability to hold space. It's because they're more in touch with a deeper part of themselves. They're able to hold that space for themselves, which means they're able to do that for yourself. And so there are so many other people out there that don't know how to do that. And so we struggle to express more of an authentic version around them. And we also pick up a lot of stress, a lot of fear and insecurity, a lot of things that they're not processing and moving through. And when people aren't more in touch with a deeper part of themselves, they can take that on as, this is something that's wrong with me because I'm picking this up and experiencing this. So this is why that, right now it's like a mess on the planet. It looks like a mess because we're learning as we go along. We're learning how to self-regulate. We're learning how to go within. And there are people who, the ones who are struggling the most with mental health, they are the ones who are more deeply sensitive and more affected by everything. And I'm someone who it took me a long time to get to this point. I struggle with a lot of suicidal thoughts. I struggle with a lot of mental health, particularly in my late 20s. And there were moments when I could have taken my own life away. And I'm here for a reason. I'm still here because I faced the depths of what it's like to feel as low as anyone can feel. And so that also means that I've learned through that, being at the very depths, I've learned how to transmute that. I've learned how to experience such intense emotions and learn to channel all of that in a positive light. It's not taking me overnight. And as I'm recording this right here, right now, this particular week that I've been moving through has been very, very heavy. And because I'm more in touch with a deeper part of myself, I've not made that mean anything about me. I need to fix something about me, or there's something wrong with me, or I'm lost. I know it's just a bit of a season that I'm moving through because there's so much happening on a collective level. There's so much happening through the solar activity. But so if I need to rest, if there are days where I'm struggling to function, I've just got to get through the best way that I can and know that as a human being, I'm doing the best that I can. And I just want to acknowledge that where you are right here, right now, you are doing the best you can based on what you know and understand right now. And so acknowledge that about yourself. Acknowledge that, you're going through this transition, and it's I know I used this before in past episodes, but you're that caterpillar that's shedding all of those layers of conditioning. You're learning to expand your own heart, and there are so many conditioned layers around that. There's a lot of fear and insecurity that you're peeling back slowly and slowly and slowly, and you're learning to expand and turn into that butterfly and feel more lighter and freer. So that's what we're doing, is we're going through this process of living in a world that right now is very heavy. There's a lot of trauma in the world. There's a lot of heaviness, a lot of density, and we're learning we're becoming more lighter. There's so much that we're processing, moving through, shedding a lot of layers, and we're going through that process. It's very uncomfortable. It's very confronting, and this is the part of this is the process we're all going on. So I want to share this perspective to you and know that where things are right now, it may look like everything is falling apart. It may look like you're completely lost in your own sense of self and identity, and feel like you're failing, but you're not. You're just deeply connected. You're deeply aware, and you're learning how to move through life in a world that's very heavy, as a deeply sensitive soul, as an autistic soul, as a brain that operates in a different way through ADHD. You're learning to be in this world but not of it, and it's going to take time. And I hope through this podcast, that I'm giving you deeper insights into that, so you can learn to start to see things from that higher perspective, a different perspective. And through this process, you will learn how to start to anchor in more of your soul. You'll learn how to follow in more of your intuition. You'll learn how to follow that path, even though you don't have all of those pieces in front of you. And, it's just one step at a time, one moment at a time, learning how to do this. And, I hope that you continue to find that sense of connection, that sense of peace within yourself for this process. So if there's something in this episode that resonated with you, take a moment to reflect on this. Have you been trying to fix yourself for something that might not actually be your fault? And what would change if you started listening to what you're feeling instead of pushing it away? You don't need to have it all figured out, but awareness is where it begins. And if something came up for you, you're always welcome to share it. And this is why this space exists. This is why this space will continue to expand and to evolve. Through each podcast episode, I'm hoping that more and more people find this. Please share it. Please, if there are other people in your life that are moving through this and need a lot of help and support throughout this journey, then please share it with them, because I am here to shift that perspective on the planet. This is why I'm sharing my voice, because this perspective really matters for people that are really struggling with their mental health right now. Because when you start to shift that perspective, you start to take back your own authentic power. You start to know that there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing to fix. And it's, even though it's uncomfortable, even though it's very hard to go down this path that we're all going on right now, to know that there is a deeper sense of peace and connection. And it's about you finding that light within yourself, or learning to anchor in more of your soul, learning to trust that, God is already on purpose. He's already paving the path for us, but we need to trust that our soul is going to lead the way for us. So we need to know that as human beings, we are doing the best we are with where we are right now, but we don't have all of the answers. So we need to trust in a higher consciousness. We need to trust in our own soul. Our soul put us here on purpose. You are already on purpose. You're not behind. You're not failing. And please know that. Please know that. Please be kind on yourself, no matter where things are right now, and no matter how things are looking in your life and around you, in your relationships. Please know that, you are doing the best you can with where things are right now. And I hope that this, helps you find more of a sense of peace and connection, more of a sense of community. And, that's what this is all about. Awareness is where change begins. What you're feeling is not something to ignore, it's something to understand. Because the more you reconnect with yourself, the less lost you begin to feel. This is the Inner Magic Academy podcast, and I'm really glad you're here. Thanks so much for joining us for this episode. If you enjoyed it, we'd really appreciate it if you could subscribe to our channel and give us a like or even a comment. It really does help so much in getting our work out there to the people who need it. We're so grateful for you being here, and we'll see you for the next episode.